Established in 1926, the GAO School is the first school in the nation created for students with dyslexia and other language-based learning differences.
Today, GAO is a premier boarding and day school for students in grades 5 through postgraduate.
Located 30 minutes from Buffalo, New York, GAO's campus features 7 dormitories, classrooms, an indoor athletic center, sports fields, theater and art studios, a robotics lab, and more.
To find out more about this nurturing and supportive academic environment, please visit www.gao.org or call 716-652-3450. Hey, Melissa.
Hey, Amy.
So we just had an engaging, enlightening, lively conversation with Kareem Weaver. And boy, howdy, we had questions. He had answers, but we didn't even use our questions. Talk about organic.
It was so fun. We had a great time.
Oh my gosh. He's very engaging. And let's find out a little bit about who Kareem Weaver is. So he is the co-founder and executive director of FULCRUM. He's an award-winning educator and community advocate with extensive experience leading schools and systems in district juvenile justice and managed care settings, and his advocacy is featured in the 2023 documentary, The Right to Read.
And his commitment to literacy is deep-rooted. He credits the quality of his education to a program through A Better Chance, a nonprofit that provides high-performing students of color access to the best schools, helping them become the nation's next leaders, which you could tell by listening to him. He just has thrived through all of his education, all of his experiences. He is a teacher himself, an educator. He has a child with dyslexia, so he knows his stuff.
And he told Melissa and I we should write a book.
And
Yeah. And he said he would write the foreword to our book. So now Melissa and I, we have little wheels spinning in our heads about, interesting. So we're kicking that around, y'all, and it's all because of Kareem Weaver. So
thank you.
Yeah. So we're very excited to present to you the engaging Kareem Weaver. Thanks, guys. Hi, this is Amy.
And Melissa. We are a couple of retired Texas teachers who are CALTs, Certified Academic Language Therapists. We started our own businesses, and now we have a podcast called
The Dyslexia Duo. So join us for our informative podcast, where we'll delve into dyslexia, covering the topics that affect parents, therapists, teachers, practitioners, and anyone who wants to learn more. We'll guide you through everything you need to know, from the first signs to the intricacies of dyslexia curriculum placement and beyond.
This season, we will cover the referral process, what to expect when your child or student is dyslexic, the generational impacts of dyslexia, and how to support those affected.
Come join us.
Hey, Amy.
So today we have a special guest on with us. Now, just to kind of explain, we have a very diverse audience in a very short time. We started doing this in June. We've gone global. We've jumped into the top 10% of all podcasts of all time with our recording, so it's very exciting. We have teachers, we have parents, we have dyslexia therapists, dyslexia practitioners, decision makers, policy makers, admin, all kinds of people listening to the podcast. So we're so excited that we have Kareem Weaver on with us today. So Kareem, would you like us to call you Mr. Weaver, Kareem?
Just call me Kareem.
Okay, just want to be sure.
All good. Glad to be with you today.
Yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell our audience a little bit about you.
Sure. So, longtime educator, father, husband, teacher. I worked in the Department of Juvenile Justice for a little while. And also, I was an administrator in a K-12 orphanage school in South Carolina. I was an administrator, of all things, right? Who knew that orphanages had schools, but they do. Some do. Some do K-12. And what else? So I was in psychology. My background is actually clinical community psychology. That's what I was studying for. And I wanted to teach, but I wanted to make some money first, so I wanted to do that. I'm a first generation college kid, then realized life's not guaranteed to you. You don't have time to waste. Had a health challenge and realized I better do what I've been called to do. So I started teaching and done several roles in the school system, leading classrooms, schools, and departments within systems, and then trained principals and teachers. Was a funder for a while. I've done a bunch of stuff. And now, I had worked with the NAACP to help them push the civil rights agenda on education literacy, and did that for a few years. And now I run a nonprofit to help all kids learn to read.
So is your nonprofit FULCRUM?
Yeah, it's FULCRUM. Full and complete reading is a universal mandate.
That's what I was asking.
It used to be FUCLUN. It was like full and complete reading now, or something like that, like Fucklin. And my co-founder was like, no, friend, no, you can't. Just trust me. We're going to do something different. I was like, no, but they can reading now. Like, no, it matters. So we went with, she chose FULCRUM. And so, I guess she was right, but we're a small shop. We help systems, districts, states, mainly policy wise and getting their literacy plans together and doing a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, we're just trying to get all kids to read. That's our whole thing.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Have you visited Texas and done anything here?
Not much. A couple of things. So the superintendent of the San Antonio Independent School District is a guy named Jaime Aquino. I think it's Jaime in San Antonio. He asked me to come out. We worked together at New Leaders. He was the chief academic officer of this training program. I ran the Western region. So he asked me to come out and kind of set the stage for their literacy initiative going forward. So I did that. Also, the International Dyslexia Association had their 75th conference or what have you. And it was in a city in
Fort Worth.
Austin. Fort Worth. Yeah. Right. So I was there for that. So I've done a few things, but I haven't been working with many entities in Texas. Although there was an initiative, and when I was a funder, there was a group that wanted to open a school for dyslexic children. And I was a funder at the time, and they were funding like innovative things, and it didn't pass the muster of I was like, you know what? No. We're gonna fund this thing. It's like $250,000. We're going to fund this thing. They want to help dyslexic kids learn to read. That's the innovation. Newsflash. I know people want the sexy silver bullet. No, guess what? Teaching all kids to read. That's the silver. That's what we want. So if they're willing to step out and do that, we're going to support them. So anyway, so that's my connection to Texas. But other than that, a lot of other places, but not the Lone Star State.
So you had said that you felt you were led to where you are, what you're doing. I feel also that I was led to my career in helping kids with dyslexia. So what exactly was the thing that made you feel like you were led to this path? Was there one thing, or is it a number of things?
It's a bunch of things. First of all, don't let me forget, there's something else in Texas that I almost forgot. I'll tell you later, but there's a district that the boosters kind of run the roost in Texas.
That's a lot of districts in Texas.
Yeah, I know. And we should talk about that at some point. Okay, but what led me to, so I had a friend, I didn't know that a lot of people in my family are dyslexic. I didn't know that. It runs in families. I didn't know that. In fact, I didn't know much about dyslexia at all.
Right.
But when I got to Morehouse, a college friend of mine, Ennis, Bill Cosby's son, Ennis Cosby, may rest in peace. He's dyslexic. He was my study partner.
Oh, wow.
Cool dude, man. Yeah, easygoing guy, tall, dark and handsome, easygoing dude. Everybody loved Ennis. And he was dyslexic. Yeah. And he was a horrible study partner. Oh my gosh, drove me crazy, because he had gotten to the point where I think it was that if he just graduates, his dad would give him $1 million.
Oh wow!
Just because he was struggling.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people think the issue is motivation.
Right.
If I could just motivate you enough, you'll do the stuff.
Right.
It wasn't motivation. He was dyslexic. They didn't realize. Yeah. So they ended up, he was like he's like a CD student, barely making it, passing classes. Sometimes it wasn't even a D. He was struggling. Then he went to the summer program at, I think it was Landmark College.
Yeah, we heard Jonathan Mooney talk about that.
Yeah. And they, in one summer, turned him around. All of a sudden, he came back like an AB student. I was like, what did they do? What is that? And Ennis was like, listen, Kareem, I know you talk about the school to prison pipeline, but I got news for you, friend. He called everybody friend. Friend, if you have dyslexia, nobody knows it. you're already in jail. It's just
Mm-hmm.
different.
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we decided he was going to be a special ed teacher because he wanted to help kids with dyslexia and other special needs. I just wanted to teach in the hood and do that. But we kind of agreed that that's what we were going to do. And he lost his life. Someone killed him.
Yeah.
Was murdered by the side of the road. May he rest in
Yeah.
peace.
Oh
But
my
he
gosh.
really wanted to be a special ed teacher because he wanted to support kids with dyslexia. That was my first exposure to it,
Mm.
about the difference that could be made
Mm-hmm.
if the kids just get what they need.
Mm-hmm.
So
you
you
know.
witnessed it firsthand as a
Yeah.
friend.
Yeah, as my friend, he's my guy. Yeah, and then as a teacher, and then I have a daughter who's dyslexic and a nephew, and it's all in my family. But to see her struggle and me not know what's going on, even though Ennis told me about it, I didn't know what it was. I didn't get it. People think they understand, they really don't. I didn't
Mhm.
know. And my daughter was a softball player, and she was very good at softball, but we didn't pursue college really hard because scholarships and stuff for softball, because she wasn't really eligible. You
Yeah.
have to have certain grades to even play.
Yeah.
And so she just kind of given up. And then when we finally got her tested the summer before her junior year, that's a whole nother story. Come to find out she was dyslexic, and just the knowledge of that and giving her a few tools, she did great in the classroom. It was a struggle. It was a struggle. We had tutors and all type of stuff. But and she's all-state softball for 2 years, and people are recruiting her and all type of stuff. So it just was a matter of knowledge and getting her the support that she needed.
She needed those
I
accommodations in place in college, and she was smart enough to get through all of her public education. But the sheer amount of reading and writing that you have to do, and like
Yes.
everybody's only student for each class, and so you have 4 or 5 of those types of classes with that bulk load like that. It's hard to keep up.
That's what people don't understand, a lot of people. So if you're a kid, the teachers would give at our high school, the thing was 30 minutes a day. Everybody give 30 minutes a day of homework. That's what they were trying to aim for. Okay. She's got 5 classes, 30 minutes a day. So you think 2.5 hours that's a lot of homework anyway. But for her, that 30-minute homework assignment, man, that's taking her like an hour and a half for real.
Yes.
Like a good hour and a half. Now you multiply that times 5
Yes.
every night, at minimum every night.
Yeah.
And so
And
you
that's
get out
after
of
a full day of school.
full day of school and all the drama that goes with that. And then you want to play an activity or something. Let's say you get home at 5 o'clock because you play softball or soccer or something. So what, you're supposed to stay up until 12, 1 o'clock in the morning every night, and you haven't even eaten any. I mean, at some point kids tap out.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they may not tap. So they may still go to class, but mentally and emotionally they've tapped out. They're just not engaging. And so the school says, well, we're going to have a social emotional program to get the kids to, no, friend, you got to give them what they need in this reading class, so that they don't need a Band-Aid. What they need is everyone to be on board instructionally to make sure that they're getting what they need day in and day out.
I completely agree with that. We've had Texas dyslexia law in place in Texas, obviously, because this is Texas dyslexia law, but it's been in place since 86. Right. And so that meaning that there had to be on every public and now charter campus somebody who can provide dyslexia instruction. And they have to be fully trained in a dyslexia curricula in order to provide that instruction. And so we're very lucky here in Texas to have that in place. Now, does it differ from district to district or campus to campus what the curricula is? Yeah. And that can be a problem sometimes. But for the most part, when our kids and we have to have, every teacher has to have X hours of understanding of what dyslexia is in order to re-up their certification. So, these are things that we have in place, which is really nice. But, everybody interprets even the same information in a different way. And so we still have kids that are slipping through the cracks or flying under the radar with all the identification pieces.
Yeah. So there's a policy piece that comes from this, because you have to remember a lot of school systems and states have what they call the discrepancy model.
Yeah.
So it's officially an issue when a child is 2 years behind.
Yes.
Well, I mean, 2 years, a kid is 2 years behind. You've already taken tread off the tires. That's 2 years emotionally, psychologically, mentally. That's 2 years of feeling like you're just all kind of negative attributions, self-attributions. What's wrong with me? That's 2 years of that. And a lot of kids just tap out. within that. So you have to have an early identification system where kids are recognized for having some risk factors or dyslexia or something. It's got to be systemic. And that's why that's one of the policies that matters most is early identification. So screen kids early, K2, so that they don't have to wait till they fail till we actually figure things out. Texas has had some. So I remember Clements and I remember some other folks. That's back in the 80s.
Yeah.
And then George Bush was a governor for a while, and George Bush was the one. His brother's dyslexic.
Yep.
And so a lot of people. Texas has been fortunate enough to have leaders who care about this issue and who are willing to kind of go against the grain and make it a priority policy-wise. But there's still more work to do. There's still some things that Texas got to get done.
You know, a big component of that is the teacher education program itself.
Oh, my goodness. Yes, indeed.
I'm an elementary certified teacher, and when I went through my elementary education undergrad work, I didn't know anything about dyslexia when I left college. And I think that's a huge component into why a lot of teachers don't understand what the warning signs are, what to look for with dyslexia.
And you're not alt-cert either. You're not alt-cert. You went in for elementary ed.
I went in for elementary education. So I should be the first stop to recognize if somebody is dyslexic or if they are a struggling reader.
That's still happening.
It is.
And it's surprising to me with everything that we know. I can, when I got my master's and I got it in curriculum and instruction, one professor one day talked about dyslexia. And I was like, really? This is it? We're talking about reading instruction still, and this is all. They were still talking about Lucy Calkins and Fontes and Pinnell and all of those.
Well, let me just say, while we were talking, and you mentioned it, I jumped on the National Council of Teacher Quality's website and looked at higher ed for reading foundations for Texas. And there, to your credit, as a state, there are some schools that have great programs. I see A's and A pluses down here, Texas Southern and Dallas Baptist and Slow Ross and Houston Baptist and other schools like that. But then there's about 17 programs with an F rating.
Yeah.
So these are higher. So these are the sort. Now, listen, I know colleges don't like this. I don't care. I understand. No one likes to be judged. No one likes to be, who is these nonprofits that are pointing their fingers at us? Well, listen, let me tell you something. Yes, we care about the football team. Yes, we care about, who wins state at the high school. Oh, that's fine. But you're giving public money oftentimes, some of these universities. And part of that is to help prepare our teachers. And there aren't enough touchdowns you can score that's going to make up for the fact that some schools are pumping out teacher candidates who are not ready.
Right.
They have paid their money. They've paid their dues. They've learned all the different philosophies and theories, but they don't know how to teach a doggone child to read. That's a problem. And if there's a policy part to this, but then there's also some responsibility on the presidents or the chancellors or the provosts or whoever, the dean of education. They got to get their house in order. And if it's a matter of resources, okay, fine. Well, let's find the money for that, either public or private or something. But you have to be able and humble enough to retool and say, we're going to align our program, our practices with what evidence shows the greatest number of kids need to learn to read. Because if we're not doing that at the teacher preparation level, these universities, then we're just hamsters on the guinea pig wheel. Like we're going to keep scurrying along, and the next wave of teachers are going to come in, and they're going to go back to the same methods that you just mentioned because that's what they've been taught in the graduate program.
So I went to a university that's not real far from me without naming names, and it's the leading state college for teachers, and it has been the leading state college for teachers for decades, right? And I can remember moving from that transition when you do all your lower level classes to your actual field of study. And I remember, because at the time I was taught with whole language, right? You see it, say it, right? And so I didn't know that words made sounds. I didn't know how to unblend it. I didn't know the individual sounds, the phonemes. And I can remember asking one of my professors, I said, what if I have a second grade class and they don't know, one of my students doesn't know how to read the word dog? And she talked about flashcards and she talked about bringing in books. I mean, it was a whole language movement because I went to college for my bachelor's in the 80s and 90s. And so I go, no. What if they can't read the word dog? How do I help them? Because I didn't understand. You took the word apart, you unblended it, you segmented the sounds back together. And she basically said the same thing to me, slower and louder, because I wasn't catching on. I said, no. how do I teach them how to read the word dog? There's got to be something beyond what we're saying. And she
That's
looked
right.
at me and she goes, you read what it says in the teacher's manual. And I went, so basically she's telling me, shut up, because she didn't know either,
Right,
Right.
right.
And so I just
Yeah.
kind of kept quiet the rest of that year because I was like, oh, evidently I don't know what to do. And I prayed I didn't get a second grade class. I didn't get a second grade class. I got a sixth grade class my first year I taught. And they were migrant workers. And a lot of those kids couldn't read and write. And I didn't know what to do.
That's right. That's right. That is all too common, unfortunately. So people think, okay, well, that's just kindergarten, first, second grade. So as long as I'm not there, like you say, I'm good, probably. But then you end up in high school or middle school or fifth grade, and the kids can't read there either. And so at some point, we have to realize that all teachers are reading teachers. You have your content, biology, math, whatever, but you're also a reading teacher. Because if they can't read, I got news for you. That history class, the U.S. history class, they're not going to be able to read anything. And they're going to be captive to whatever they're being told as opposed to being able to read things for themselves.
Yeah.
Right.
So your experience, teaching that grade, you realize, hey, this is something that I need regardless of what grade level. There are teachers all across the country who are dealing with this. And I'll say this. So I'm looking at this site and I see Houston Baptist and Sul Ross State and Texarkana, down to Midwestern State and all these. These are not the schools who are playing for the college football championship. And so we got to get to the point where we're not worried so much about the brand of the school, the shield. Oh my gosh, I love that burnt orange, or I love this, or I love that. That's fine.
Right.
That's fine. But you need a little Ann Richards in you where you just tell it like it is, and someone who will just call it like it is. And this school needs to get better. And I don't care what they're doing on Saturday afternoons at the football field. This school is doing a great job preparing teachers. We're going to elevate that school, or I'm going to recruit teachers from that school to serve in our district because we're worried about our children and who's prepared to teach them to read. And we can still cheer for our favorite team. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But when it comes to education, forget about the brand, forget about the shield, forget about all the rest of that stuff. Who's going to help your kid? I'm going to say this. I had told you to remind me, but I'm going to say this right now. I hope you don't mind.
Yeah, I wrote it down so I remind you.
I know.
I won't name the district because, I don't think that's right. But I was giving a speech somewhere in Texas, and a group of folks came out, and we had a lunch afterwards or an engagement afterwards. And it was a bunch of boosters for this high school district. And they didn't really seem too interested in this whole reading thing. Like, it was like, whatever, they were there, they were polite. It was nice. It was a nice lunch and whatever. But I realized I'm not getting too far with these guys. They didn't seem to be too interested. They're more football type guys. And finally I was like, I'm wasting my time here. But I said, I turned to one guy and said, if a district was really serious about winning state, they would fix this. They're like, what? I was like, yeah. Some of these districts think they're into football or sports. So they don't really want to. If they really wanted to win state, they would focus on this. I had their full attention. They're like, what exactly do you mean? I was like, listen, man, your offensive line, half the kids who should be on your offensive line are ineligible. That linebacker that you want, that you look, he's 6 foot and runs a 4.6 40, and he's ineligible. Whichever districts actually get serious about this and gets kids reading, man, they're going to widen their talent pool 3x. I was like, but who am I? I'm not a football guy. I'm not a booster. I don't know anything. It's like, but whoever figures this out there, and they'll be winning state every year. All of a sudden they got serious. Like, okay, so what exactly are you? Let me tell you something. Within the year, they had a plan. It was called like State 2027 or something like this. Plan had a binder. The superintendent had been moved out. They had they moved quickly and they made changes. And I was like, oh my gosh. Oh, to win state. Wow. I felt bad. I felt kind of dirty, to be honest with you. Like, it's going, but it's Texas.
That's not on you.
I was going to say,
them.
That's Texas.
But, at the same time, at least they're doing something about it. Like, they have hired a person who's focusing on literacy. They got these goals. They got a plan. They got interventions. They got the whole, man, the boosters did more than all the policymakers and all these other people who talk a good game. And It was the boosters. They said, no, we want this for our children. They got their own. You can judge them for their motives if you want to, but they were moving and they made changes. I was like, my God, I wish we had that all over the country. Just people who just say, no, 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 no. We have a goal. This is part of our goal, whether it's economic development, whether it's winning state, whether it's whatever your thing is, literacy, if it's at the core, you have to act like it.
Well,
and you have to move with purpose.
And I've always said, I mean, I've been retired for a few years from education, like actually retired, like I have a pension and everything. But I can remember that, you know, whenever we needed something for the dyslexia department, we needed a new curriculum, we needed more teachers, we needed more whatever. We wouldn't get it until we got a superintendent who had a child of his own who was dyslexic. It had to be important to him or her in order to make it important for the rest of the district, and I appreciate it, but at the same time, I wish it didn't have to come to that. I wish it was just a realization that everybody knew how important it was.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, the thing that got these guys over the finish line was when I mentioned the name. I said, you ever heard of Dexter Manley? For those of you who are old football heads, you'll remember Dexter Manley. He played for Oklahoma State. Big old dude, and was like NFL defensive player of the year. He was a very good player. I was like, yeah, he was dyslexic. He graduated, but he couldn't read. I said, most kids like Dexter Manley never get out of high school, or they don't play. They're ineligible. I was like, you got Dexter Manley's all in your district, and they can't even play. They were like, oh my God. They were, you know, and they got it. They got it. So the question is for us, and like you mentioned, like, what is it going to take for us to take this seriously?
Right.
What is it? What is it? You know, for some, it's pictures of smiling kids. For others, it's football. But at the end of the day, parents who have children who have this concern or this learning difference, like they're usually at the forefront because they feel the tip of the spear right on their neck.
Now a word from our newest sponsor.
Is your child struggling with reading, writing, or spelling?
Do you suspect they might have dyslexia?
At Hill Country Dyslexia Services, our team of experienced educational diagnosticians are here to help.
We offer a thorough evaluation process at HCDS to help you identify your child's needs.
Call us today at 512-648-2291 to schedule an appointment and take the first step towards supporting your child's learning journey. Let's return to the show.
Well, and the unfortunate thing is in the elementary level where that is so crucial to get that early intervention, there's not those drivers like the football and some of the other things that people value so much. It would be nice if there was another kind of push in the elementary age where people would really have that desire and see the long-term benefits of that for their child. And I think that parents are starting to understand. I think parents are starting to gain more awareness through things like that, what we're doing, what other teachers are doing, you know, and other dyslexia therapists are spreading the word in their districts. I know in our district I worked in before I resigned, we were doing parent education trainings at least once a year, sometimes more. So that, you know, it's a step in the right direction. But sometimes the actual administrators who are in these meetings that go through the identification process, sometimes they don't have the buy-in with whether or not somebody looks like they have dyslexia.
Well, I mean, looks like. I mean, can you glance at somebody and say, yep? I mean,
that's
really,
just it. Like they have their preconceived notions of what dyslexia looks like or what dyslexia is based on their own experience or based on what they believe through whatever they've experienced in their entire life, but they might cause some rifts with the identification process as well. So it seems like there just needs to be some reform across the board for a lot of us.
Yeah.
Well, in Texas also, I mean, if you look at the Excel in Ed has this policy and implementation map where you can see these early literacy policies and how many of the policies the states have adopted. And Texas has 10 of the 18, 3 of them are fully implemented, 7 are kind of partially implemented. For a state as serious about its kids as Texas is, which I love about the state, like that should be no different than Mississippi or Alabama or North Carolina, where it's 18 out of 18. There's no reason for that. You know, there are some states that have this ideological issue with things. And so California, we can't get a policy passed because there's these groups blocking things. New York has 0 of the 18 policies. But then down in Alabama, it's 18 out of 18. Like, they're like, forget all that. We love our kids. You can kiss our behind. Texas got to get dogged about advocating for its kids. Now, that's at a policy level. But there are some things, whether it's making sure you've got evidence-based interventions, or it's making sure there's literacy coaches available, whether it's making sure that there's no 3Qing going on. I know there's some stuff that's passed on that, but it's
still
not
happening. It's still happening. Yeah, it's still happening out this way.
That's right. That's right. And so those are the type of things that they just need to happen, and it's going to take money, but shoot, it costs us money not to do the right thing.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's much more costly to not provide the correct intervention, remediation, whatever you want to call it, for our students in the long run. You know, we can buy into these color-coded reading programs that look great when they come in, you know, nice and boxed and shrink wrapped, because I've been there for the unwrapping for that kind of stuff too. And I just kind of roll my eyes, but, you know, and it looks really pretty, but it doesn't do anything. And we need to start. We just need to get better. I don't even know how to put it right.
Well, there are some things that can be done to get better. And you're exactly right. It's not about the shiny new object. I mean, sure, there may be some programs that are helpful, wonderful. A lot of people think, oh, there's a dyslexic kid in my classroom. Well, when they go to the resource room or the special ed room, they'll fix them.
Right.
Okay. Right. They're going to go down that hall. They'll do that, and then they'll bring them back to me. So I don't feel necessarily the response. No. They have a right to free and appropriate public education. That means that in regular classroom instruction, regular tier 1, regular class, they have a right to get what they need too.
Yep.
Free and appropriate public. And so that the materials that you're using, that's how your teachers are trained. That's how the principals are and the coaches are supporting. That is all the things that go into regular classroom instruction. They have a right to that, to be ready right now. And so I really want to make sure people understand that, because oftentimes we think, oh, sure, yeah, we have a great intervention program. Okay, well, first of all, you can save yourself a lot of time, energy, and money. You can save the kid a lot of hassle and heartache. You can save the parents a lot of grief if you don't wait until they need that intervention.
Right. That
you handle it in tier 1 regular classroom instruction. That's the big issue. So your curriculum ought to be, I know the TEA has a list of things that they approve, and they actually worked with a group that creates their own curriculum, which I think that's great. Forget the name of them. They design it how you want it. Fantastic. Your materials have to be lined up. So part of that should be, hey, we want you to create something that will work for this group of kids. Because if the dyslexic kids are getting what they need, newsflash, everybody else is going to get what they need too.
That's right.
It's not about singling them out. It's centering them. Don't tell me I don't want to hear about equity. I want you to make sure that when you're picking and choosing stuff, that you put my kid in the center. Because if they get what they need, then all the other kids are going to get what they need. That's just, to me, that's common sense. But your materials have to line up, your schedule, your budget, your calendar, all that type of stuff. And it shouldn't just be when they get to resource or special ed. It should be regular classroom instruction. Kids have a right to that. You're not giving them something. It's not like you're giving them a gift. They have a right to that. And that's where the civil rights aspect of this comes into play.
And their dyslexia doesn't disappear when they step foot into the general education classroom.
No.
Right.
So that's where the accommodations are so crucial, and for teachers to understand how vital it is for them to follow those accommodations to the letter.
Well, even in the tiered, because we talk about the 3 tiers, tier 1 is everybody, tier 2 is that smaller group, and tier 3 is the more intensive, SPED resource room. And tier 1 and tier 2, even though you might have some instructional coaches that are coming in and supporting one, they're not there all the time. They may have 3 different campuses, right? So they're not there to support all the time. Teachers are still given a lot of autonomy on how they interpret those various curricula and how they provide that instruction at tier 1 and tier 2.
Yeah. Well, Amy, a lot of people look at it as I'm a teacher, and so it's disrespectful for you to tell me what to do. I need to have control over my classroom, and that's respectful for me as a teacher. I understand that thinking, but it can't come out of an insecure mindset of saying, they don't respect me as a professional, so if they give me more autonomy, okay, listen, if you prove to me that you can have great outcomes for kids every year, that you're a great curriculum designer, you're a great instructor, and you have vertical alignment from K-12, you have all this wonderful thing. Okay, great. But you know what? Most people are human beings. They're not Superman or Superwoman. And it is important to have materials at work and the expectation that we're going to actually implement this. And you can sprinkle your own teacher sauce on it. Of course, teachers do that. No teacher is the same.
Right.
No one's saying you got to be a robot. Let's not play games. First of all, it's not about you. It's just not. It's about the kid and what the kid needs. And if you're the kind of teacher that I think you are, which is a conscientious, loving, caring, respectful, kind, supportive teacher, you want what's best for the child. And the whole. We have to move away from this lone wolf mindset and also feeling like no one should tell us what to do. No, friend. Like if you're understanding that rights and duties go together, that you're part of a collective, and that to get the kids that you're talking about, the kids who have learning difference or processing difference, or they've got dyslexia or dysgraphia or dyscalculia or whatever, if you want to get those kids, man, you need tools. You need time to prepare for those tools. You need consistency. You need leadership. You need oral language development. You need all these things, and we don't have time to play games and worry about your ego and feelings of security or insecurity about this stuff. We just need good materials, and we need you to apply them with your own teacher flair that only you can bring. But it's not disrespectful to say that we got to have this. And districts and superintendents who can't say that or they're scared or whatever, I don't even know. As a board, you have to hire courage and leadership and make sure that people communicate well to people and put kids first. And most teachers understand that. Like, no one's going to be offended if the kids are learning to read and enjoying school and loving it. Like, who will get mad at that? If you got an issue with that, then the issue is with you, not the rule, the curriculum, or whatever else. So,
absolutely.
So what do you think that parents' role would be in helping to drive this change?
Well, it's a great question. I should ask you I have an answer, but I'm going to ask you all, because I'm sure you hear from parents all the time. What are the tensions that parents face in terms of getting involved? And when you have a child with dyslexia or a learning difference, what are some common tensions that parents face in terms of the expectations versus how they need this job? I've got an answer, but I'd love to hear from you all what you think your perspective is.
So coming at it as a parent, now my child didn't have dyslexia, but they had different learning problems. Walking in even to like an ARD committee or even a 504 committee where I'm the lone wolf representing my child and having 15 people around a table looking at me, telling me what my child needs. And I'm going, okay, maybe I don't know. It just, it makes you feel like it's an intimidating way to walk into an ARD or into a 504. And I can see a lot of, and I'm an educator. And I can see how parents who maybe aren't in the education system or maybe just don't know what they should know, thinking, this school's telling me this. Okay. And the school does want, for the most part, the best for their child, but maybe they have misinformation. That's kind of some of the things. Where can parents go to get the information, not the snake oil, but the information they need?
Right. Melissa,
I
what do you think?
Well, from my own experience with my son who had ADHD, teachers would say, I don't have time to provide those accommodations for your son. I have 150 students and I just don't have the time to do this. I tell you what, that lit a fire in me. And I snapped back at that teacher. You don't have 150 students like my son. You probably have 5 students like my son. You have time. So I get those types of things. And then again, still back to the administration. Sometimes the administration is a difficult beast.
Yeah. So let me just say, listening to your stories about it, I can see why this podcast is popular because parents, that's what it is. Parents have to wrestle with that. And I would say for a parent, the first thing you have to do is prepare yourself not to be liked. And if your number one goal is to remain being liked and popular and accepted and all the rest, it's not going to go too well for your child. Because the institution is going to move right along. You have to be okay with not getting invited places. And listen, there are times when I, as a father, was trying to advocate for my kids or for my daughter, especially with dyslexia, where I knew it was going to be a problem when I sent the email. I already knew. I was a principal and a teacher and all that. So I had a reputation. People knew me. And so they would give me some grace. But if you send that email, if you have that meeting and you don't nod your head and go along with it, listen, you're on the outside looking in. You are no longer in. So if your currency is being accepted by the schools and being liked and having favorite parent status and being accepted by the PTA and invited to this, and you drive to the, all that type of stuff, you're going to lose some friends. I hope it's not like this, but you have to be okay with that. First of all, you got to decide it's either my kid or it's these relationships over here. It is not that you want to make enemies. I'm not saying that, but you can't let them dangle acceptance over your head. You have to be willing to move without that. So that's the first thing. And you all kind of sound like you had to run into that. So, and that's like parents, for some, that's a loss because that's your friend group.
Yeah.
You know, you get along with the teachers and other parents, and you don't want to be known as a troublemaker. Like you want to be, come on now. For some of us, that's the social. So like, that's the first thing. And kids need you to choose them over the institution. If you're not willing to choose your child over the institution, I got questions. I got questions about your bona fides as a parent. Like, it's kids first. For me, it's kids first. I want to be friendly. I want to get along. I want to do all this. But this IEP or this this is serious. This is my child. And so I want to be a team player. I want to get along. But if it gets down to it, they need to understand whose side you're on. And the kid needs to know. And so with that comes holding them to the goals, making sure that you're documenting things properly, that you're not just signing things because they tell you to, that you have to understand things. You know, there was a court case recently in Tennessee, and it was upheld on appeal. So this is now precedent. This is very, very important. There was a young man, Williamsburg versus whomever, whatever county it was. I'll get the reference for you in a minute, but the kid graduated with a 3.4 grade point average. They're designated as, they have a special ed classification, 3.4 GPA, and they graduated. The kid can't read. Kid can't read. They're dyslexic. Kid can't read.
I think I just saw that.
Yeah. It's a very, very important deal, precedent setting. And what the court said was, you know, when they sued, the court said it's not enough to just meet the goals. Because, you know, for the IEP, you've got goals and all that. It's not enough. It's not enough to just have an achievement like graduation or to be eligible. That's not enough. The court said and affirmed on appeal that children, for free and appropriate public education, they have a right to make progress on certain foundational things. In other words, and parents got to know this, your kid, they have to learn to read. They have to actually make progress on these things that are going to allow them to do life well. Not just, hey, because they'll just pass you along and give you the grade and all that. That's not enough. Yeah. Your kid has a right to more than that. So as an advocate and as a parent, you can't just go along to get along. The goals are important, but it's more than just the goals. They have to help your kid make reasonable progress on the things that they need to be successful in life. It may be uncomfortable for the district. The school system may not like it, but they have a right to that. And so I say that's for your listeners to know that you actually have federal statute on your side and you actually have legal precedent on your side. You hope it doesn't get to that.
Right.
But when you're clear about your stance as an advocate for your child, you know that's part of what you have to stand on. So that's the mindset that you have to have going into it.
I'm grateful that you're sharing this with with all of our listeners, because this is something that probably a lot of parents haven't heard. They probably don't know the extent to which they have that power.
The name of the case is William A. versus Clarksville County, Montgomery County. It's just 2024. It just happened, but this case serves as a precedent. It guides courts and schools, how they evaluate the adequacy of these IEPs. Yeah. You have to make progress, significant progress, and the implications for future cases is huge. So I'm glad your folks have that knowledge.
So I would like to take this even one step further and ask you a little bit about low income families and having access to this as well. So I know that it's a little bit of a different process, and they might not have the same ability to get to the school and advocate for their child as often. What do you recommend for those types of situations?
Man, that's the real color, isn't it? It's green. If you don't have the money,
Yep.
really, if you don't
Yep.
have the money,
Yep.
you're so first of all, there is an aversion to special ed in many communities. They don't want their kid in special ed. They feel like it's like a label or whatnot. First thing they have to understand is when your kid is, they've been tested and they see there's a learning difference or processing difference or something, and that's actually power in your hands. That IEP, that's a legal document through the federal government. And if the Department of Ed ever goes away, as they're talking about, the Department of Ed hasn't been around forever. Like I remember when we created the Department of Ed, I think it was Jimmy Carter. Before that, there was no Department of Ed. So if the Department of Ed is in there, then it'll go to the Department of Justice. But either way, you've got standing within the federal system to advocate. So don't be afraid of special ed. Like if your kid has a designation, just make sure that the things that are in the goals and all that it's the right stuff. But don't be afraid of that because it actually allows you to advocate. It puts Uncle Sam on your side, so to speak. So that's the first thing. The second thing is there's power in the group. So I know people don't want to look bad because, we have our relationships and no one wants to look like their kid is struggling. But hey, there's power in going together. So having an active PTA that takes this on, that's not afraid, where you're not afraid to look bad or whatever, or have your kid look bad. Like if you can go together with others, it's huge. And I would say others is a broad term. So we have to be willing to advocate with people that may not share our exact demographics. So if you're a parent that doesn't have that much money, partnering up with a family that does, or a family that speaks a different language, or has a different culture or linguistic background, going together is politically powerful at the school level and the district level. It really is. But oftentimes we only advocate in silos, meaning only the moms of dyslexic kids will go together, or only the kids who are Black with their parents will go together, or the kids are bilingual. They go, well, what if you go together and say, because what's good for one group is actually good for all. So if you go together and say, we need structured literacy here, we need curriculum that works, that our teachers have an opportunity to plan for. We need teachers who are trained and have professional development for them available. We need to make sure that there's quality tier 1 instruction every day, that our kids are being screened for processing, like all the things that you want. If you want to fight alone, go ahead. Like I'm not going to stop anyone from fighting, but I'm just telling you it's more efficient to partner with others who have similar interests, their kids learning to read and advocating together, because that you can do with the classroom level, the school level, the district level, but primarily at the board.
Yeah.
Because you're voters. And so they're responsive to you as a group and as a collective more so than an individual. So that's what I'd say. But then specifically for your child, you've got to ask for specific things. I'd like to see a skill-based scope and sequence of your reading program. Skill-based. Don't tell me chapter 5 is on Martin Luther King. Like that, fine, wonderful. What skills are being taught in that unit or that lesson? And I need a scope and sequence, because you're not in there just winging it with my kid. Okay. I need to know what's the plan here. And most teachers, that's fine. Here you go. They'll send you the link. But if they can't, that's a problem. That's a red flag. How often are people in this school or educators getting quality feedback on their practice? I'm not talking about evaluation. I'm just talking about, like, we want them to grow in a certain area, because if they didn't get it from the graduate school, we talked about the colleges, then there needs to be a concerted effort from the administration here to grow teachers' skill set and capacity. If that's not happening, then I need to know what the plan is for professional development, because my kid has a right to tier 1 instruction that's going to meet their need. So if the universities aren't preparing the teachers, then best believe we need to have some district-wide PD or some school site-based coaching that's going to support their practice. So those are some basic things that you start with. Skill-based scope and sequence. What's the professional development look like? What kind of coaching are teachers getting? And you go from there. And remember, like, if you have to jump on this early, and I would say there's some things that you can do as parents to help with this. If you're grocery shopping, talk to the kid. Ask the
Mm-hmm.
kid to read the materials. You're watching television, turn on the subtitles. Those the thing on the TV. You're watching the football game, turn it on. Let the announcer talk about it, and they can read it. Just little things that we can do where you can kind of get a sense of where a kid is at in terms of their language skills, their listening skills, and also as they're starting to learn to read. Those would be some of the early things that I do as a parent.
That's, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I hope we have parents and educators out there taking notes while they're listening and writing this all down, because this is stuff that's, and I've been in education a long time. My mom was an educator. That it never occurred to me.
Yeah. And some of that stuff is free. I know we can have a reading intervention program and spend all the money in the world, and that's fine. If you got a good program, that's great. But there are some things. So for parents, we have to get used to talking to our kids again. I know they've got their devices. And, I've had teenagers. I get it. Like, they'll go in their room and just, like, you won't see them for a day. Like, they'll just be there. We have to talk to our children and get our children. No. We need our children to talk to us, because we could talk at them all day. Yeah. But we need them to talk and back and forth. That's part of developing their language skills. I'm not saying be the police, like, whatever. You want to have the kids on devices. My kids use devices, like, but I make them talk. You have to get them to talk and come out of that bag. First of all, it's good to develop their language skills. Those are leadership skills. And also, it gives us, it's like our early warning system to know when something's wrong. Hey, did you see this? And tell me about that. Are they processing information? My daughter, who's dyslexic, I can remember going through a Vegas. Don't me. The travel ball team used to have the kids stay at this. I don't know how they got, but we stayed at the casino. We would go through the casino to get out, and you get lost. You can't. It's all the same. Like they do it on purpose. Like, you don't know the lights and the noise and all that. And I'm lost. And she's like, "Oh, Dad, it's that way." I'm like, "How did you know that?" She's like, "Oh, well, because I smelled this. I could hear the sound of this. Or there's the floor here has like a rubble type of feel." She was using all of her senses. She's dyslexic. So she uses her senses different. I was like, oh my gosh. So we have to give children opportunities to develop their senses in more than just the traditional ways, because you never know what they're going to need those senses for. That's why, at MIT, they call MIT, it's like the dyslexia capital or something like that. Oh, they call dyslexia the MIT disease. It's not a disease, but they call it, they moniker as the MIT disease, because, NASA recruits from MIT because they've got so many kids there who are dyslexic. Half those scientists at NASA, they're dyslexic. They recruit from there because they have learned to use their senses differently. And that's an advantage in some areas. So as a parent, you have to keep your kids from getting cold and from getting like destroyed by this system. You got to keep them in there long enough to whereas what they consider to be a deficit in some say actually can become an asset, because they've been developing their senses differently for many, many years. 42% of self-made millionaires are dyslexic. And there's a reason for that.
42%.
42%. Now, at the same time, 48% of the incarcerated population in our country is dyslexic.
That's what I was wondering about too.
Did you say 3%?
48%.
48.
So you can go either way. I mean, it's getting them the support they need. You ever watch that Shark Tank show? You remember that one where they try to invent? Okay, well, 3 of those sharks are dyslexic.
Yeah.
Mr. Wonderful, the bald guy, him, Damon John, and
Barbara Cochran.
Barbara. Yeah, Barbara. They're dyslexic. It can be an advantage in business, but you got to survive the school system. You got to survive it. Our kids are getting cold. Like, they're dropping out. They're washing their hands of the whole thing. And we've got to get to the point where they stay in it long enough to benefit from some of the, the upshot of some of the challenges they've had to deal with. I'm not saying it's necessarily an advantage, but how you navigate it ends up being an advantage because you develop your senses fully in other ways as well as just the traditional ways.
Well, and the school is such a crucial point in making sure the kids can go and develop those senses or go to that school to prison pipeline, like you've talked about before.
We often hear about that school to prison pipeline. It's almost like like I said, within it's almost like a cliche. It's like a cliche. Man, it's real. The Department of Justice in 1993 put out a report about reading being a cause of incarceration, not just a correlation. and they talked about the different things that impact young people ending up incarcerated. And they're like, this is an issue. And they pointed their fingers square at the universities. And they said, basically, the teachers, the professors are more concerned with ideology than they are making sure that teachers have the basics of reading. This was 30 years ago, 1993, 32 years ago. And it kind of was just, jails don't mince words. Yeah. They tell it just the way it is all 100 proof, no chaser. And they said, the issue, this is why they're coming to jail. They can't read. And so the frustration that builds up leads to delinquency, and it ends up, it's very sad, but it doesn't have to be that way. Colleges have got to get their act together. I don't care how good your football team is. If you're not teaching kids to read, if you're not preparing teachers to teach kids, then you shouldn't be getting public money. This is the mandate. This is what we as citizens need from you as a university.
This completes part 1 of our interview with Kareem Weaver. Join us next week as we conclude our discussion. The Dyslexia Duo podcast hosts are Amy Rodenroth,
Melissa Dean.
Our producer is Greg Rodenroth.
You can find us on Facebook at The Dyslexia Duo.
Email us any questions or comments at thedyslexiaduo@gmail.com.
Awareness is so important. Share this podcast with your friends,
family,
and teachers.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye.